giving a talk at the time when, for example, the New South Wales Independent Commission Against Corruption has been very active, looking at things like the previous New South Wales Labor government and the way that coal mining tenements were handed out to close mates of the government. So that was a fairly obvious issue to raise, but it became clear to me as I reflected on it that there were some perhaps less obvious issues as well. I certainly think that churches and church congregations are a very useful forum for the discussion of these kinds of issues, but you can have similar discussions in all kinds of community groups, in professional organisations and so on. In my view, the more discussion there is about the question of our political system and how well it operates and what its deficiencies are, the better. Well, I think both the corporate realm and the political realm obviously raise ethical issues, and there's a well-developed set of rules in both worlds to deal with those sorts of issues. For example, directors of companies, if they happen to be directors of two companies that are dealing with each other, have an obligation to disclose their conflict and typically to exit from the decision-making process. Now, all of that is encapsulated and formalised in the formal black-letter law that deals with how companies must operate, and there's a lot of similar black-letter law and quite detailed rules governing the expectations on politicians. Similarly, there's a set of rules that apply to politicians, disclosure obligations and so on. There's an extensive legal framework dealing with political donations. So in both worlds, there's a set of well-recognised issues, there's a set of rules. The rules are not perfect, and there's plenty of areas for the exercise of discretion and good judgment. Keep your feet on the ground, so don't get too caught up with a sense of self-importance, and remember the concerns of the people who you are there to represent. Secondly, keep your hands out of the till, fairly basic rule, but as the ICAC proceedings in relation to the New South Wales government, Labor government have reminded us, not everybody remembers that important rule. And a third, which thankfully is one that's not been too relevant in Australia, but very relevant in many other countries, is keep the tanks in the barracks. In other words, the primacy of democratic decision-making is something that we must value and that we must always work at.